Thank you very much, and we are grateful that you join us today on the first edition of Wild BW podcast. My name is Oshinka Tsiang. Wild BW is a project that is dedicated to creating a local narrative about our conservation. Botswana is a country that is endowed with incalculable assets in terms of natural resources. Now, these assets have drawn the world's attention to our shores, and obviously, with that comes narratives that are not necessarily locally generated. So Wild BW is dedicated to helping Botswana not only understand the value of their assets, but be able not only benefit from that, but also be able to put out a truly local narrative concerning not only our assets, but even how we benefit from those assets. We are very grateful again today because our first guests on Wild BW podcast is none other than the minister responsible for these assets. That is the minister responsible for environment and tourism, Winter Muludzi. As you are aware, Muludzi has been in that office for more than a year now, and so we are very, very grateful that even as the hunting season starts, he's here to share with us his thoughts and the challenges that his ministry are facing and how he and his team continue to work to ensure that Botswana benefit from these natural assets. Muludzi, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us on Wild BW.
Thank you very much, Redziang, and thank you very much for having me here. And yeah, I'm here to just discuss generously about what we do and what we stand for in all the issues regarding wildlife.
Thank you so very much, Minister. Just maybe your thoughts as an introduction. You have been in this portfolio, this ministry, for more than a year now. What are your thoughts so far? And when you came in, what did you expect? And what are your thoughts as you continue working here?
Well, right now what I can say is that, of course, now I think this is my 13th, 14th month as a minister responsible for environment and tourism. And, when I came in, of course, wildlife, I realized that the ministry was contributing significantly, of course, to the GDP at 5.1%. And, we came in at a point when the diamond revenues had seriously plummeted. And one of the things that, I was entrusted with was to make sure that, we grow tourism. And obviously, when I looked at how things have been functioning, I then realized that only non-consumptive tourism was being marketed here and abroad. And the other part, which is sustainable use or consumptive tourism, was not being marketed. It was actually looked down upon. But then I thought, in order for us to realize that which we have been assigned to do as the ministry, we need to make sure that as we promote non-consumptive, we should also promote consumptive tourism. Because consumptive tourism is not about, going around, killing animals and doing all sorts of things. Consumptive tourism is about sustainable utilization of these assets. Sustainable utilization of these assets, because if you don't use them in the first place, what is going to happen ultimately is that, the environment is going to be degraded, human-wildlife conflict is going to be escalated. There will be so many problems, which, as you know, you see, hunting was banned some years ago. And what happened was that the population of elephants grew phenomenally. And today we have well over 150,000 elephants which are roaming the country, and they are even going to places where they never even used to be seen. And that was the result of the hunting ban then. And so if you want to conserve, if you want to be strong in conservation, you need to have a balance of both consumptive and non-consumptive tourism. So basically, when we got in, consumptive was kind of detected, hated, not favored. it was given a bad name, but what we are trying to do right now is to make people understand that this is about sustainable utilization, this is about conservation, and not about any brutality to animals.
And that, Minister, really has brought us to the meat of our conversation today. And I think you got right into it, which basically is this dichotomy between, as you say, the clash between consumptive and non-consumptive tourism. But surely you do not underestimate the magnitude of the challenge that you are facing with regard to the demonization of hunting.
Yeah, of course, I know. There are some lobby groups, both locally. We have some people locally who are demonizing hunting. And of course, there are also a lot of people outside the country that are also demonizing it. But to me, that is understandable because we have different lenses with which we look at issues and situations. And therefore, I don't think there is anything wrong with them voicing out their views. But the position of the government right now is that we need to have sustainable utilization of these assets, these resources. Because at the end of the day, if we are not going to sustainably use them, they are going to become a problem. What kind of a problem? They will become a problem, one, because of the populations that I've already spoken about earlier. That will be uncontrollable. When the populations are too high, they migrate into agricultural lands. They go even into households, kill our people, kill our children, kill our women, do all sorts of things. And ultimately, if people don't accept that is when now they start what we call retaliatory killing. And do we want to see people retaliating because these animals have destroyed their crops, these animals have destroyed their livestock, these animals are killing them? Should they retaliate? If they retaliate, will we have anything remaining? Because they will just shoot and shoot because they want to revenge. And that is why, we think sustainable utilization will also assist people to coexist, to coexist with these animals, and know that they can be a source of livelihoods to them as the communities. So it's important that even as they demonize hunting, they should also understand that hunting has a role that it is playing within our communities. And hunting itself, compared even to non-consumptive tourism or ecotourism, it actually gives communities local benefits because, as they sell these animals, as these people stay in concession areas. And when we give them a hunting quota and they sell, they are able to directly get the funds that they are going to use to develop themselves. Like, there are trusts right now that bought tractors, and these tractors are plowing for communities. There are trusts that are paying people old age pensions. There are trusts that are doing excellent job when it comes to helping the communities. And so demonize, yes, but if you demonize, what are you saying about community development? What are you saying about sustainability?
Okay. Well, there are two main target points in terms of the attack against hunting. One, that perhaps the returns are not as significant as they should be, especially as you've been saying that there's some accrual of those returns to the communities. But there is the value chain, the hunting value chain. And those that are the critics of hunting don't think that it's worth much. Two, they also attack the narrative that hunting also supports conservation in terms of of the species. You have been able to at least go to hunting expos very recently. In fact, one in Atlanta, the other one I think in Germany. What did you learn in terms of the value of hunting that you think Botswana should benefit from?
Yeah, actually, hunting is a very big industry. It's a multi-billion dollar industry that if people begin to understand, they can make huge huge amounts of monies, and the value chain involved, whether it's byproducts of these wild animals, whether it is the people that are actually making services out of the hunting industry itself, the jobs that are created by hunting. It's just too big. You go out there. When I was out there in Atlanta, I was able to have a conversation with people that are manufacturing choppers, and these people were telling me that they sell a lot of choppers to hunters who go out there using these choppers to hunt. Guns, multi-million pula industry. I had a conversation with the manufacturers of guns, who told me that, you see, they make a lot of money annually out of manufacturing guns, and it is these hunters who actually buy these guns. Not only that, a number of things that are made out of wildlife products that are creating jobs, that are supporting the value chain of the wildlife industry, and therefore, to me, the lessons that I learned were very, very good, because now I'm informed of what the industry can do, even locally. All we need to do is, first of all, understand and accept that hunting is another form of sustainable utilization. And after understanding that, we also need to now take an extra step and say, how then do we make it big also in Botswana? That is why one of the people that I met in Atlanta were the people the organizers of the event themselves, the DCS organizers. And what we discussed extensively was the possibility of bringing that show, even if it is a miniature of that particular show, to Botswana. And fortunately, they are amenable to doing that. So they have asked that we put together a concept to them so that they can look at it and see if they can. But they were very excited about the possibility of bringing that show here. And if that show can be brought to Botswana, if Botswana and the neighboring countries can actually see the kind of show fair that these guys are putting up, I believe that is going to make people understand the hunting industry well, and it is also going to now start motivating people to actually go into the industry.
So even in the mice sector, there is value to hunting.
Of course. I mean, you see, the Germany dormant fair attracted over 80,000 participants. Over 80,000 participants from all over the world. And the Atlanta fair attracted over 45,000 people from across the world. And you can actually see that the mice sector benefits so significantly from this. Imagine 80,000 pula in one town, 45,000 people in one town. And imagine if that was to come to Botswana. Even if we have half of that, 20,000 people coming to spend a week here in Botswana, it's quite huge, I mean, in terms of returns for the country.
Okay, so we haven't really, we've just about scratched the surface when it comes to the hunting industry in Botswana.
We really haven't done anything. I think we are just starting. We are just starting, and like I said, and as you already indicated, hunting was demonized. Because you remember that even 2 administrations back, hunting was banned in Botswana. And it was implanted in the minds of the people that hunting is bad. Hunting is cruelty. And therefore, now we are starting. We are starting afresh, to make people understand that it's not hunting, it's sustainable utilization.
Okay. Let's talk about conservation, the value of hunting to conservation. How do you explain that? How do you explain the fact that you kill in order to sustain?
Yeah, like I said earlier, if you allow populations to grow uncontrolled, for example, you see, I think on average, like we have just over 150,000 elephants, and every year they increase in numbers. You get maybe around 6 to 10,000 young ones every year. And if the numbers are not checked, there will be no conservation. And that is why if you go to the northwest, you realize that a lot of tree species have been destroyed. They break big and small trees and tree species and plant species, shrubs and everything. And the ecosystem is seriously affected by that kind of degradation. The land is degraded, so much soil erosion. So, if we allow the numbers to escalate of whatever species that we want to talk about now, if we allow the numbers to increase significantly, ultimately there will be no habitat to talk about. And therefore, if there is no habitat, then there are no assets. We will not be in a position to even afford them water during the drought season, because normally what we do is that during the drought season we try to pump water for these animals, and where we are right now we are not even able to cope with it. That is why during the drought season quite a good number of them die, because first of all the pastures are inadequate, because they've been degraded. Secondly, because even water scarcity is problematic. We previously have tried to sink boreholes for these animals, but the budget, unfortunately, does not allow us to do that. The consolidated fund can no longer support this because, you see, obviously there are other competing needs. So the wildlife ought to pay for themselves. They ought to sink boreholes for themselves, or we need to sink boreholes using money that we get from conservation. Otherwise, I foresee trouble if there will be no conservation actually. If we don't control the numbers by hunting. And remember, Retsian, that even as we talk about hunting, it's so insignificant. Now we are regulated by CITES. We are only given a quota of 400 every year, but we have never even managed to kill up to 400. We go around 200, 100 and something, because we are conservationists by nature. And therefore, I want to say that if we don't conserve, then we'll have no assets to talk about, because there will be no ecosystem, there will be no habitat to support these assets that we are talking about.
There are those who believe that perhaps there are other ways of managing that. For example, when you talk about issues of human-wildlife conflict, you find ways of ensuring that perhaps the elephants don't, specifically the elephants don't get to get into the fields. They don't get to where people are. There are also those who, I'm only this morning I just saw a write-up where there is one organization that is partnering with Elephants Without Borders to move Botswana elephants to Angola to try and, if you like, reduce the load on Botswana. What's your thought on that?
Well, elephants are quite brilliant animals. And the reason why elephants don't migrate to places like Angola right now is because they know there are landmines. And removing landmines in Angola is going to take a long time. It's a very slow process that's going to take ages. And even after managing to take them out, in the mind of an elephant, they will always know there are landmines in Angola. So this is a very long strategy. It will take a very long time for elephants to start moving freely into places like Angola, because they already know that once you go there, you die. And that's basically basically the reason why most of them stay here, even though they know there is a country called Angola. So, yes, maybe let's think of other strategies, but this strategy of thinking they will migrate soon, that one is not going to help us. And the strategy of unearthing landmines will take a long time, and it's an expensive undertaking.
Okay, that apart, we are seeing, for example, interventions where the fields, the people are being encouraged to have beehives around their fields, even maybe plant chili and other, intervention methods. What's your thought on that in terms of actually controlling the numbers and also mitigating against human-wildlife conflict?
Well, yes. The strategies have been tried, like the chili, the growing of chili. But like I said, you see, elephants are quite clever animals, very brilliant. So it was a problem the first year. I mean, it could deal with elephants the first year. But now, you know what they do? When it is still fresh, they graze. They destroy that, they eat before it is a problem. So right now, the chili strategy is not working at all.
It's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. They have actually now acclimatized to living around them. And in fact, now they provide feed to elephants. So now the only thing that works is electricity.
It's electricity.
But how many farmers can afford electricity? Very few.
So you still have to have hunting in the mix when it comes to conservation.
We still have to encourage hunting in a controlled manner. You see, because if we don't, ultimately, people may feel, even as population grow, people may feel, why do we need to create space for things that are useless to our lives? Maybe we should use this land for something else. And so government may ultimately say, because the communities are complaining, maybe let us use this land for something else and not for conservation and not for wild animals.
Minister, when you came in, you were very, very quick to look at the laws and ensure, for example, the promulgation of the CBNRM Act. There is a lot of issues with regards to governance of the CBNRM, the communities, the CBOs, which to some extent actually give those that are the critics of hunting a lending sport. How do you intend to fix this? Because it does look like governance is a huge problem when it comes to the CBOs.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that prior to the law that we promulgated on CBNRM, there was no law. It was just a policy. And CBOs were using their own constitutions. And now, with the new law, a lot of improvement is going to be realized, because now we have a law that is going to be regulating how things are going to function. A law that is guiding how things are going to be done, and also that same document that we are talking about also has fines of how people that are going to go against the law will be dealt with. Because right now, where we are, CBOs have not, a lot of CBOs, let me not generalize and just say a lot of them have not been doing things well. And that is why, when I came in, I had to make sure that this law is promulgated in order to close governance gaps, in order to make sure that now the communities benefit from the resources. Because previously what was happening, or what is happening even now, because the law has not really effected, is that board members or trustees are the ones that are benefiting from these resources and not the communities. But I want to say there are a few community trusts who are benefiting their own communities, even though there was no law, but at least they had wisdom enough to understand that these resources belong to the community and they should be used to develop the community. So what I'm trying to say is that with the new law, we are addressing all the problems that have existed ever since the beginning of CBRN.
Okay, but even with the new law, Minister, there are still those who feel, for example, that the TAC some TACs, not all of them, obviously, do contribute to the confusion in terms of governance, because some of them become complicit to the issues of corruption within the CBO organizations. So is it not an issue of one, intent, and two, enforcement from your ministry's position?
Well, this piece of legislation that we promulgated, the CBNRM Act, is now very clear about the composition of the TACs themselves. And this time around, we have introduced the private sector. We have actually introduced specialists from different areas to be part of the TAC. And we believe that the new composition will provide a completely different approach to how TACs have been functioning. You see, I really don't think when they were still using the policy, they knew exactly what they were supposed to do. And I don't think even the level of commitment there was there, because they didn't see it as part of their job. But now that it's part of the law, that it is their job, they have to do it, they know the consequences of not doing the job, I believe things are going to be different.
So, but your hope is that in the law as it's being implemented now, because it's really just new in terms of its implementation, you are hopeful that there will be more benefit than there are issues in terms of the law. And,
obviously.
And when do you expect, if, for example, you still have those issues, how soon can you be able to amend the law, or does it have to be the regulations that have to actually get into space?
Actually, the law commenced on the 12th of January. Yeah, it commenced on 12th of January.
Yeah.
And according to this law, CBOs are supposed to align with the law within a year. So right now, they haven't started aligning. We are now currently also putting together, as per the prescription of the law, putting together the CBNRM department that is going to be responsible for all the things related to CBNRM, because as you may know, they were registering through the Master of the High Court, and now they will be registering through the CBNRM office. And once they have aligned, they will now be compelled to follow the law as it is. And one of the things that we have done is to come up with one constitution, a model constitution that all the CBOs are going to align to. And although the act has actually commenced, we are now at the tail end of the regulations. And I believe very soon the regulations will be launched. And then we will then expect all CBOs to now start aligning, and so that now they are controlled by the new act. Because once all of them are under the new act, I can tell you a lot of things are going to be very, very smooth. And what you should also know is that once the law has been enacted, when people start using it and they realize that there are some problems within the law, it can always be amended. And what is important now is for the law to start functioning. And then once the law starts working, then those that are using the law will start experiencing problems here and there. And then once problems are experienced, then we will further amend to make sure that the law now does what it is supposed to do.
If you just tuned in, this is Wild BW. We are talking to the Minister of Environment and Tourism, Re Winter Mulutsi, on this day as we launch the hunting season for 2026. Minister, when you spoke earlier, you did declare that you saw it fit now to get the hunting side of tourism be promoted by Botswana Tourism Organization office. Now, And you did indicate that you are aware of the significant challenges that promoting hunting is going to be. What are you going to do to clear the path for BTO to be able to actually promote hunting around the world?
Yeah. You see, we made it very clear to BTO that as the current administration, we are for tourism, whether it's consumptive or non-consumptive, we are for tourism. And therefore, when they go out there to perform their mandate of marketing Botswana, they should market both eco-tourism and hunting, because that's what we feel the BTO should do. They can't only market one side, and that is why you see the revenues that we got have not been so good. Although we come second after the diamond revenues, but you can actually see that if hunting tourism was promoted, we would have been maybe very close second or par or even better. And I still believe right now that if we go big, if we go big on hunting tourism, we will be able to surpass the revenues that were generated by diamonds even during their best days. And so their mandate now is go out there, let's promote both hunting tourism and ecotourism.
But surely, when you look at the field now, even as we speak, the noise that's been generated by the anti-hunting, I would call them the anti-hunting brigade, is it's quite loud. How, for example, do you intend to deal with organizations that I think teetering in the brink of almost criminality in terms of the way they go about, demonizing Botswana as a hunting place, and also disturbing the peace in the communities about these animals? I don't want to name them by names, but we do know that there are organizations that now, even as we speak, when we look at the areas like NG13, NG3, they are very active in those areas to stir the noise against hunting, and therefore this will necessarily make it difficult for BTO to be able to go out there and sell hunting. How do you intend to deal with these organizations?
Maybe for starters, I think it's important for people to note that we do these things guided by the CITES law. We do this legally, and hunting is done with due care, because like I said, we are conservationists. We advocate for sustainable utilization. And now, people who are organizations that are against hunting are organizations probably who have never seen how our people are suffering in the hands of these animals. These are people who have never seen an elephant trampling on a woman who has gone out there to fetch firewood for her children, fetch water to come and prepare food for her children. These are people who have never seen an elephant trampling on a 10-year, 11-year-old child going to school. These are people who have never seen the damage that elephants do to the crops that people grow. And these are people who basically have never seen the atrocities people go through on account of these wild animals. And therefore, as former President Masisi, when he was in Germany, actually said to Germans, we can give you 20,000 of these elephants to just coexist with them and see how it is to live with these animals. And therefore, all I can say is that the anti-hunters normally complain, but they never help in terms of trying to improve people's livelihoods, in trying to protect even the lives of people. We have lost so many people to elephants and to other wild animals. People have been impoverished by the acts of these wild animals. Have you ever heard of them donating anything or saying anything about people's livelihoods? No, they don't. All they talk about is atrocities to animals, brutality to animals, but they don't care about human beings. They will never talk about brutality to human beings. They will never talk about atrocities to human beings. They will never talk about the lives lost. They will never talk about the livelihoods lost. And therefore, I believe those animal groups, anti-hunting groups, ought to come down to reality and say, if we allow them, these animals, to overpopulate, and what's going to happen to their lives? Because like I said to you earlier on, during summer, a lot of these animals die. Die why? Because there is no pasture, because there is no water, because we are unable to drill many boreholes on account of budget. But they don't come in here to say, we want to drill boreholes for these animals. We want to provide pasture. We want to vegetate the area. No, they never provide those solutions. All they want to say is that animals are friends. Yes, they are friends. But, there's the other side.
Okay. In your approach, Minister, I can hear that you are firm in ensuring that hunting does find space and continues to be part of the mix in terms of conservation in Botswana and, of course, tourism. Are you singing the same tune with your colleagues, not only just in cabinet, but within the coalition? Are you singing the same tune? Are you all on the same boat?
We are in the same boat, and in fact, even the opposition, they also feel that community livelihoods should be taken care of by hunting, because it is the communities that are being disturbed, disadvantaged by coexisting with these animals, and therefore they are for hunting. They are for sustainable utilization. Because we basically don't say hunting. We don't say hunting. We say sustainable use. Because like I said, it's sustainable use indeed, because we are very, very conservative. If you kill 200 or 100 and something a year in an environment where over 10,000 are born every year, you are actually, it's insignificant. You're actually not doing anything. So, and again, even when we do this kind of hunting, we do selective hunting. We don't just go out there, hunt everything. No, we also look at animals that can be hunted and those that cannot be hunted. Very selective.
Okay. But so how do you now get your colleagues, whether it's in the party, whether it's, as you say, an opposition, to also sing that same tune and actually voice this? Because there has not been many voices, except that we've heard from Khosi Khama. Obviously, this time is no longer in politics, but from the Nkradi Khosi, asking pointed questions that seem to be suggesting that hunting is not necessarily acceptable.
Well, I have not gone out extensively to do maybe public education on the benefits of sustainable utilization, obviously. But, with colleagues in Parliament, we talk about this. Even through these questions, we provide a lot of information to MPs. But fortunately, we are dealing with with politicians who are already converted. Because those that come from the northwest are opposition colleagues who witness on a weekly basis what communities go through under this wildlife, and therefore when you talk about sustainable utilization, you're actually preaching to the converted, because they know the benefits of CBNRM, and they have seen the sale of wildlife benefiting communities handsomely. Yeah.
So you are confident that you do have support from a political standpoint.
Very confident.
Well, even as we come to perhaps towards the end of our conversation, Minister, one would be interested to hear from a sustainability point of view in terms of sustaining this narrative. One of the issues that has been raised is the questions that talk around hunting, organizations that actually seem to be supporting the ministry, whether facilitating the ministry with, management of, elephant management or, lions and other species. Is there anything wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with these hunting organizations, or at least that are linked to hunting, actually supporting the ministry?
No, actually, we would like even those that are against hunting to support the ministry. Because, like I said, it's important for us to work together, both that are anti and those that are for pro-hunting. Because at the end of the day, if they help the ministry, especially with research and development, if they help us with a lot of information that is going to help us not to thumbsuck, to make evidence-based decisions, we will welcome that kind of assistance. So pro-hunting, are assisting us in trying to do research here and there so that from time to time, decisions that we take are informed by science. But these ones are always complaining, but are not coming forward to say, we will assist you to do this kind of research. All they do is they will have their own research that is biased and then send it all over the world without even passing it through the ministry, without even giving us even a raw data to actually look at what they were looking at, what informed their reports, and so on and so forth. And so I don't think that's a constructive way of doing things. I think the constructive way of doing things will be to support the ministry, especially in carrying out these researches that are neutral, researches that are not researches that are not biased, and also to provide raw data that will also help us to balance the reports they make and really say this is authentic. And I will continue to advocate for people to come forward to help us because we are in this thing together. Because in the end, you see, we don't want a situation where one day we will say, we didn't listen to this group. We would want these people to come together, assist the ministry, carry out the functions. I mean, you can imagine the kind of assistance that people give us where they say, we want to assist you to do the elephant management plan, to do the lion management plan, to do this kind of plan. So when they do that, you see, you can see it's people who are interested and concerned about, the future. Because if we don't have that information, how then do we know that we are supposed to stop hunting this species, that this species is overpopulated, this one is underpopulated? If we don't carry out studies, how are we going to know? So that is why we will always be very appreciative to those that are helpful. And of course, very little appreciation will go to those that are always making noise but doing nothing with regard to assisting us going forward.
Okay. There's a question that somebody has been, niggling with on Wild BW, and which is there is this story that continues to do the rounds of a convicted felon who is operating freely in Botswana, somebody who has been, convicted elsewhere around the world with wildlife-related crimes. We don't want to name names, but could you perhaps touch on that and tell us what are you doing about it as the ministry?
Yeah, maybe first thing to note is that we believe in the rule of law. We believe in the rule of law, and therefore that is why we will always make sure that we tread very carefully when it comes to dealing with such issues. We have heard stories about some people that occasionally come to the country who have been convicted elsewhere, who we are told have got so many charges laid against them in other countries, but they still roam free even in those countries. We are told they are here. As far as we are concerned, when we look at the information that we get from companies, these people don't appear anywhere in any company locally. And therefore, it's very difficult for us to say this person is participating in hunting in this country with this company, because obviously, if they don't appear on the company registration, then it's difficult for us to actually lay a claim. But then, of course, we hear that there are some people who are here, convicted in the US, having problems in South Africa, and we are keeping our eyes open. We are keeping our ears open as well, because in the end, we really would not want to entertain people that are going to tarnish the reputation of our hunting industry, and in fact, the reputation of our tourism in Botswana. We are opening our eyes and our ears. If there is anything that we can do to make sure that our tourism is kept as clean, we will do that.
The ban on ivory sale, Minister, I know it's still on right now, and there have been attempts to try and ask the world to be able to open, at least even just for once, so that you can be able to do a once-off sale of ivory, to be able to reinvest the money into conservation. How far are you doing on that front in terms of lobbying for that?
Yeah, we have lobbied. We continue to lobby. Those who came before me lobbied, and those who came before them lobbied. CITES is unrelenting. CITES lately, has a lot of anti-hunting organizations that are influencing it. And it's something that is not going to take a short time to be achieved. And therefore, that is why now we need to change strategy as a country and say, now, since we have 160 tons of ivory, what can we do with it? And we probably ought to find ways of beneficiating this within the country for local market consumption. Because at least, the law allows that we can deal with it locally. The law does not allow us to export. But in terms of, exploring the value chain within the country, we can do that. We know Zimbabwe has been doing that. They've been doing products and byproducts using ivory. And this is where now we are looking at, trying to say, how can we use this ivory so that we stop complaining? It's a losing battle. And therefore, you see that ivory that we are keeping there, we are keeping it at a high cost because it is kept under regulated temperatures, guarded, and therefore the cost of maintaining that facility is too high. And it's time now that we need to find ways of using that ivory to benefit Botswana.
It's guarded, Minister, because presumably there is a market, there's a black market for that. So one would suggest that if you were to open trade in ivory, you would not run out of a market, would you?
No, we would not. You would not run short. What you should know, Retsian, is that the ivory that is kept there is the ivory from just elephants that just die naturally, and those that are poached. Because if poachers see wildlife officers, they run away leaving ivory there. So and that is going to continue. And if we continue, if we start trading in ivory locally and beneficiating it locally, I don't think we'll ever run short of stock, and I don't think we'll ever run out of consumption.
Your final thoughts, Minister, with regard to the hunting industry going forward, and what would you like to say as the hunting season starts?
Yeah. I think now moving forward, we need to now start being considerate to the hunting industry by making sure that, just like in the ecotourism sector, they are also given longer leases, so that they can be able to even assist communities more. They can even develop lodges and stuff like that in the concessions that we give them, and that has to be deliberate. That has to be deliberate, because we want to promote tourism in Botswana, and if we want to promote tourism in Botswana, we should keep our heads high in terms of what we want to do. So one of the things that are on the table right now is, how do we increase, the lease periods, so that they go extended periods like these other ones.
Okay.
And that we are going to do, that we are going to achieve. And that is one of the priorities that are on my table, to make sure these concessions, they are allocated to them for an extended period of time. We have seen how, even in the short period that they were given, how they have helped communities, how they have drilled boreholes for wild animals, how they have been very helpful. And therefore, we think they can do better if we give them longer leases.
Okay, so you are really looking at ensuring that you capacitate the industry to actually even become more beneficial to the local communities.
Correct.
For example, somebody was asking, why would the quotas be released, at the beginning of the year, when you could actually do that, prior, so that you are then able to target the hunting shows around the world for promotion purposes? Is that a possibility?
Well, as we continue to dialogue with the industry, we improve on a yearly basis. I know when I first came in, the quota was released a bit late. The industry came to me and suggested that it shouldn't go that late. They suggested a time. We then were able to bring it down to the time they prescribed. They also came in to say, even in terms of ending, let's not end it there. Let's end it. They provided a lot of information. We agreed with them because they are the experts in the industry. And therefore, we'll continue to dialogue and make sure that it gets better and better.
So what about capacitating locals to actually know the whole value chain of hunting, so that they can actually start playing in that space?
Yeah, actually, now that we are trying to just go big on this industry, this is the time that we are now going to be encouraging Botswana to participate. And of course, there are a few Botswana already participating. Right now, we have a number of Botswana who are now, applying to become specialists in hunting. And we believe that once it takes off, then people are going to start seeing that there is an industry there that is booming, and then they will also jump in. I was talking to those that are already in the industry to say, now this is the time to enlist young Botswana, so that they can also see how this, because you see the industry is quite a tricky one, especially the marketing part of it. It's not an industry that one can just wake up and join. So even those that are in it, you can see it is people that are experienced, people who have been in it for a very long time. The cost of marketing is too high. And the connections that one ought to make are the ones that ultimately give them better results. And therefore, that is why I'm asking them, please, can we enlist Botswana so that they can also, learn the skills on the job? Because otherwise, there is no way they can learn about this industry.
So, but you would continue to push from an international perspective, lobbying even outside. For example, in Europe, there's been this push to try and ban imports of trophy hunting, of trophies from hunting. So are you committed to fighting this at that front?
Yeah, we will continue to advocate for sustainable use. We will continue to meet members of parliaments and governments in Europe. Like right now, the president is in France. I think he will be meeting members of parliament to try and explain to them why this route that we are taking of sustainable utilization. You remember that the late Remti Mkhulu went to the UK, went to Germany to try and talk to them about the importance of hunting to the local communities. And we believe, like I did when I was in Germany, when I was in America, I will continue to meet those that make the laws to make sure that when they do, they should be very considerate to some of us.
Minister, thank you so very much for agreeing to talk to us. As I said, we are very honored that you are our first guest on Wild BW, and we hope to engage in further conversations going forward, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I also appreciate being the first, and I also appreciate sharing information, which I will always be, generous with. It's something that I'm passionate about, and I would like the world to know that Botswana is ready right now for both consumptive and non-consumptive tourism. But I also want to say that we will do this in a responsible way. We will do it legally. We will make sure that we don't violate the CITES rules. We'll make sure that we stick to the prescriptions of the book and do it wisely to make sure that there is conservation in the country.
That was the Minister of Environment and Tourism, Honorable Winter Mulutsi. He was our first guest here on Wild BW, and don't forget you can also catch Wild BW on the Tuesday Grill every Tuesday. We will also be developing a blog where you can also engage in conversations that have to do with Botswana's natural assets. I'm Oshinga Tsiang, and thank you for watching.